Hi Mark, this is Michael. My student number is S0141007. The speech title is Feats of Memory Anyone Can Do, and I'm the senior student at NCUE. So I'm going to read the TikTok speech. Feats of Memory Anyone Can Do by Joshua Foer. I would like to invite you to close your eyes. And I imagine yourself standing outside the front door of your home. And I will give you notice the color of the door, the material that is made out of. Now visualize a pack of overweight nudists on bicycles. Laughter. They are competing in a naked bicycle race and they are headed straight for your front door. I need you to actually see this. They are pedaling really hard, they are sweaty, they are bouncing around a lot, and they are crashed straight into the front door of your home. Bicycle flies everywhere, wheels rail past you, spokes end up in awkward places. Step over the threshold of your door, into your foyer, your hallway, whatever on the other side, and appreciate the quality of the light. The light is shining down on Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster is waving at you from his perch on top of a tan horse. It's a talking horse. You can practically feel his blue fur tickling your nose. You can smell the oatmeal raisin cookies that he's about to shovel into his mouth. Walk past him. Walk past him into your living room. In your living room, in full imaginative broadband, picture Britney Spears. She is scantily clad, she is dancing on your coffee table, and she is singing Hit Me Baby One More Time. And then follow me into your kitchen. In your kitchen, the floor has been paved over with a yellow brick road, and out of your oven are coming toward your Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion from Wizard of Oz, handing cans skipping straight for you. Okay, open your eyes. I want to tell you about a very bizarre contest that is held every spring in New York City. It's called the United States Memory Championship, and I had gone to cover this contest a few years back as a science journalist, expecting, I guess, that this was going to be like the Super Bowl of savants. There was a bunch of guys and a few ladies, widely varying in both age and hygienic upkeep, laughter. They were memorizing hundreds of random numbers, looking at them just once. They were memorizing the name of the name of dozen and dozen and dozen of strangers. They were memorizing entire poems in just a few minutes. They were competing to see who could memorize the order of a shuffle pack of playing cards the fastest. I realized this is unbelievable. These people must be the freaks of nature. And I started talking to a few of the competitors. This is a guy called Ed who had come over from England, where he had one of the best trained memories. And I say to him, Ed, when did you realize that you were a savant? And Ed was like, I'm not a savant. In fact, I have just an average memory. Everybody who competes in this contest will tell you that they had just an average memory. We've all trained ourselves to perform these utterly miraculous feats of memory using a set of ancient techniques invented 2,500 years ago in Greece, the same techniques that Cicero had used to memorize his speeches, that medieval scholar has used to memorize entire books. And I say, wow, how come I never heard of this before? And we were standing outside of the competition hall, and Ed, who is a wonderful, brilliant, but somewhat eccentric English guy, said to me, Josh, you're an American journalist. Do you know Britney Spears? And I'm like, what? No, why? Because I really want to teach Britney Spears how to memorize the order of a shuffle pack par on US national television. It will prove to be a word that anybody can do this. Laughter. I was like, well, I'm not Britney Spears, but maybe you could teach me. I mean, you have to go somewhere, right? And that was the beginning of a very strange journey for me. I then was spending the better part of the next year not only training my memory, but also investigating it, trying to understand how this works, what it sometimes doesn't work, and what its potential might be. And I made a hold of really interesting people. This is a guy called EP. He's an a monastic who had very possibly the worst memory in the world. His memory was so bad that he didn't even remember he had a memory problem, which is amazing. And he was this incredibly tragic figure, but was a window into the extent to which our memories make us who we are. At the other hand of the spectrum, I met this guy. This is Kim Peek. He was the basis for Dustin Hoffman character in the movie Rain Man. We spent an afternoon together in the Salt Lake City Public Library, memorizing phone books, which was scintillating laughter. And I went back and I read a Horst Hoffman memory treatise written 2000 plus years ago in Latin, in antiquity, and later in the Middle Age, and I learned a whole bunch of really interesting stuff. One of the interesting things that I learned is that once upon a time, this idea of having a trained, disciplined, cultivated memory was not really so alien as it would seem to us to be today. Once upon a time, people invested in their memories, in laborious furnishing their mind. Over the last few millennia, we've invented a series of technology, from the alphabet to the squirrel to the codex to the printing press, photography, the computer, the smartphone. They have made it progressively easier and easier for us to externalize our memories, for us to essentially outsource this fundamental human capacity. This technology has made our modern world possible, but it also changed us. They have changed us culturally, and I would argue that have changed us cognitively. Have little need to remember anymore. It sometimes seems like we've forgotten how. One of the last places on earth where you still find people passionate about this idea of trained, discipline, cultivate memory is that this totally singular memory contest. It's actually not that singular. There are contests held all over the world. And I was fascinated. I want to know how these guys do it. A few years back, a group of research at University College London brought a bunch of memory champions into the lab. They wanted to know, do these guys have brain that has somewhat structurally and anatomically different from the rest of us? The answer was no. Are they smarter than the rest of us? They gave them a bunch of cognitive, and the answer was not really. There was, however, one really interesting and telling difference between the brains of the memory champions and the control subject that they were comparing to them. When they put these guys in an fMRI machine, scanned their brain while they were memorizing numbers and people's faces and pictures of snowflakes, they found that the memory champions were lighting up different parts of the brain than everyone else. Of note, they were using, or they seemed to be using, a part of the brain that is involved in spatial memory and navigation. Why? And is there something that the rest of us can learn from this? The sport of competitive memorizing is driven by a kind of arm race where every year somebody comes up with a new way to remember more stuff more quickly, and the rest of the field has to play catch up. This is my friend Bet Petmore, 3 times world memory champion. On his desk in front of him are 36 shuffle packs of playing cards that he's about to try to memorize in 1 hour using a technique that he invented and he alone has mastered. He used a similar technique to memorize the precise order of 4,140 random binary digits in half an hour. Laughter. Yeah. And while there are all whole host of ways of remembering stuff in these competitions, all of the techniques that are being used ultimately come down to a concept that psychologists refer to as elaborative encoding. And it's well illustrated by a nifty paradox known as the Baker paradox, which goes like this. If I tell people to remember the same word, if I say to you, remember that there is a guy named Baker, that is his name, and I say to you, remember that there is a guy who is a baker, okay? And I come back to you at some point later on, and I say, do you remember the words that I told you a while back? Do you remember what it was? The, the person was told his name is Baker is less likely to remember the same word, and the person who was told his job that he is a baker, same word, different amount of remembering. That's weird. What's going on here? Well, the name Baker doesn't actually mean anything to you. It is entirely untethered from all of the other memories floating around in your skull, but a common noun Baker, we know bakers. Bakers wears hats. Bakers have flour on their hands. Baker smells good. When they come home from work, they do even know a baker. And we first hear that word, we start putting these association hooks into it that make it easier to fish it back out at some later date. The entire art of what is going on in this memory contest and the entire art of remembering stuff better in everyday life is figuring out ways to transform capital B bakers into lowercase b bakers, to take information that is lacking in context, in significance, in meanings, and transfer it in somewhere so that it becomes meaningful in the light of all of the other things that you have in your mind. One of the more elaborate techniques for doing this dates back 2,500 years to ancient Greece. It came to be known as the memory palace. The story behind this creation goes like this. There was a poet called Simonides who was attending a banquet. He was actually the higher entertainment because back then, if you want to throw a really slaming party, you didn't hire a DJ. You hire a poet. And he stand up, deliver his poem from memories, walk out the doors, and at the moment he does, the banquet hall collapses, kills everybody inside. It doesn't just kill everybody, it mangles the bodies beyond all recognition. Nobody can say who was inside, nobody can say where they were sitting, the bodies can be properly buried, it's one tragedy compounding another. Simonides standing outside, the sole survivor amid the wreckage, closes his eyes and has this realization, which is that in his mind's eyes he can see where each of the guests at the banquet has been sitting, and he takes the relative by the hands and guides them each to their loved one and amid the wreckage. What Simonides figured out at that moment is something that I think we all kind of intuitive know, which is that as bad as we are at remembering names and phone numbers and words for words instructions from colleagues, we have really exceptional visual and spatial memories. If I ask you to recount the first 10 words of the story that I just told you about Simonides, chances are you would have a tough time with it. But I will wager that if I ask you to recall who is sitting on top of a talking tan horse in your foyer right now, you'll be able to see that. The idea behind the memory palace is to create this imagined edifice in your mind's eyes. and populate it with images of the things that you want to remember. The crazier, weird, more bizarre, funnier, raunchier, stingier the image is, the more unforgettable it's likely to be. This is a this is advice that goes back 2000 plus years, the earliest Latin memory treatise. So how does this work? Let's say that you've been invited to tech center stage for give a speech, and you want to do memory, and you want to do it the way that Cicero would have done it if he have been invited to take this Rome 2000 years ago. Laughter. What you might do is picture yourself at the front door of your house, and you come up with some sort of absolutely of crazy, ridiculous, unforgettable image to remind you that the first thing that you want to talk about is this totally bizarre contest, laughter. And then you go inside your house and you will see an image of Cookie Monster on top of the Mr. Eds, and that will remind you that you want to then introduce your friend Ed Cook. And then you see an image of Britney Spears to remind you this funny anecdote you want to tell. And you go into your kitchen, and the first topic you want to talk about was the strange journey that you went on the 4 year and a half, and some friends to help you remember that. This is how Roman orators memorize their speeches. Not word for word, which is just going to screw you up, but topic for topic. In fact, the phrase topic sentence that comes from the Greek word topos, which means place. That's a vestige of when people used to think about oratory and rhetoric in this source of special terms. The phrase in the first place. That's like in the first place of the memory palace. I thought it was just fascinating, and I got really into it. And I went to a few more of this memory contest, and I had this notion that I might write something longer about this subculture of competitive memorizer. But there was a problem. The problem was that a memory contest is an pathologically boring event. Laughter. Truly, it is like a bunch of people sitting around taking the SATs. I mean, the most dramatic it gets is when someone starts massaging their temples. And I'm the journalist. I need something to write about it, and I know that there's an incredible stuff happening in these people's mind. But I don't know. But I don't have access to it, and I realized if I was going to tell this story, I need to walk into the shoes a little bit. So I started trying to spend 15 or 20 minutes every morning before I stay down off with my New York Times, just trying to remember something. Maybe it was a poem, maybe it was a name from your old yearbook that I brought it from the flea market, and I found that this was shockingly fun. And I never would have to expected that. It was fun because it is actually not about training your memories. What you're doing is trying to get better and better and better and creating and dreaming up this utterly ludicrous, raunchy, hilarious, and hopefully unforgettable image in your images in your mind's eyes. And I got pretty into it. This is me wearing my standard competitive memorizer training kit. Laughter. There's a pair of earmuffs and a set of safety goggles that have been maxed over except for two small pinholes because distraction is the competitive memorizer's greatest enemy. I ended up coming back to that same contest that I had covered years earlier. I had this notion that the I have covered a year earlier, and I had this notion that I might enter it, sort of an experiment in participatory journalism. I thought maybe a nice epilogue of my research. Problem was, the experiment went haywire. I won the contest. Laughter, which really wasn't supposed to happen. Applause. Applause. Now, it's nice to be able to memorize in speeches and phone numbers and shopping lists, but it's actually kind of beside the point. These are just tricks. They were they were they are tricks they were because they're based on some pretty basic principles about how our brains work. And you don't have to be building memories palaces or memorizing packs of playing cards to benefit from a little bit of insight about how your minds work. We often talk about people with great memories as though it were some sort of an innate gift, but that's not the case. Great memories are learned. At the most basic level, we remember when we pay attention. We remember when we are deeply engaged. We remember when we are able to take a piece of information and experience and figure out why it is meaningful to us, what is significant, what is colorful. When we're able to transform it in some way that makes sense in the light of all of the other things floating around in our minds, when we are able to transform from bakers into bakers. The memories palace, these memory techniques, they're just shortcuts. In fact, they are not really shortcuts. They work because they make you work. They force a kind of deep steps of processing, a kind of mindfulness that most of us don't normally walk around exercising. But they are no shortcut. This is how stuff is made memorable. And I think if there is one thing that I want to leave you with, is what EP, the amnesiac who couldn't even the amnesia who couldn't even remember any problems left me with, which is the notion that our lives are the sum of our memories. How much are we willing to lose from our already short lives by losing ourselves in our Blackberries or our iPhones, by not paying attention to the human being across from you who is talking with us, by being so lazy that we are not willing to process deeply. I learned firsthand that there are incredible memory capacities laden in all of us. But if you want to live a memorable life, you have to be the kind of person who remembers to remember. Thank you. Applause. And this is the end of my speech. Thank you.